Welcome to this chat. Come and chat with me with Adarsh and Sam, our missional group leaders. Early on, from the month of January, our church went through a series on the Gospel of the Book of Matthew. Their group, during the weekdays, went through intensive Bible study on the Book of Matthew. And I would be so curious to hear what their journey has been individually and as a group together. But before that, if you can introduce yourself and also answer your questions.
Hi, I'm Sam, and I co-lead with Adarsh in the Young Adults Missional Group here at Hope for All. 3 simple words, it'd be eye-opening, challenging, and rewarding. What about you, Adarsh?
Hello, I'm Adarsh. I co-lead the Young Adult Missional Group with Sam, and I'm also part of the worship team here at Hope for All Church. And the journey of studying the book of Matthew has also been challenging and rewarding, but at the same time, it was very refreshing because this is the first time a lot of us here studied the teachings in the book of Matthew in sequence, like rather than here and there over different weeks.
Of all the things that we were trying to learn from the book of Matthew, we centered our questions on the 3 questions. Who is Jesus? What it means to be his disciple, and what it means to make his disciples, right? And so in your journey on the book of Matthew, what did you discover of who Jesus is to you? Something new, something challenging, something that you had already imagined but was refreshed?
Studying the book of Matthew in particular, it's written for the Jewish audience. So they had a lot of reference to the Old Testament. So I think in the past, I didn't realize just how significant some of the things were that were quoted in the book of Matthew. For one example, it would be Jesus entering Jerusalem in the triumphal entry. So scripture recorded that he came in riding on a donkey. And looking up in the historical context, like in the old times, kings, they would ride out on horses, like for war. And during times of peace, they would ride on a donkey. So like Jesus, by riding on a donkey, was like signifying that, okay, well, I'm coming for peace. And not just any peace, but peace between God and man. So what that means for me personally is that like Jesus coming into my life, like riding into my life, like he's coming to throw out the old rule, but not in a way that we're used to, like not the conquering way, but a way of peace. And he did that through the cross. And so that was pretty significant for me.
To me, while studying the book of Matthew, I got to see Jesus as a person. I got to see how he interacted with people, and how when he was teaching, he wasn't just, being like, do this, do that, do this, do that, but like he was directly challenging the people. For example, like in the Sermon on the Mount, he gave many teachings, and at the end, he gave the parable of the wise and foolish builders, that if you are to be the wise builder, that you are to take what he has taught and apply it in their lives. Particularly Jesus and Peter, like he wasn't just teaching, but also correcting and challenging assumptions of Peter. One time Peter was asking Jesus, how many times should I forgive my brother? 7 times? And then Jesus was like, no, 77. I remember again Jesus asking Peter directly, Peter, do you love me? And I'm like, oh no. Does Peter love Jesus? Do I love Jesus? I saw Jesus as a person who isn't just here to be like black, but really like concerned with his followers as people.
Like when you were talking about like Jesus, like comparing the earthly king and Jesus as a humble king, that would definitely shape like even our behavior in our culture today, doesn't it? Right? Even as we look at the kings. So my question, just follow-up question would be, like in our world, even in our current situation in our country, we are in that stage of, we are constantly looking for a higher power that helps us, that is for us, that can be trusted, right? But at the same time, that has full of authority, but is very relatable and helpful as well, right? So what sort of hope does Jesus as a humble king stirs up. And what message could there be for the youth of Hong Kong when we look at authorities as a help, or when we look at Jesus as a help? Could there be any hope?
Yeah, I think especially now in our generation, there is technological age, like where there's just so much information, and I feel like there are just people being disappointed as well, like especially to authority. I think there's also this kind of a rejection of it because of the disappointment experienced in the past. And so I think the hope is really looking at who Jesus is in the Bible. Like, he's not just the ruler, he's not just the authority, he's not just the king, but he's also the father and the brother and the friend. It matters that he is all of those things. Is that when he comes as king, it's different. He's not just coming to conquer and overpower us, but he's also a loving brother, a father and friend who wants the best for us. So like the hope is that kind of this higher power, this higher being is completely for me. And whatever happens, I know that he's doing it for the best for me, even though I don't see how at the current moment. I think that is the hope for me.
Hope. I guess how I reconcile this with myself is, like, in light of Matthew, is by thinking of what will last and what won't last. Jesus taught this thing about treasures on earth and treasures in heaven. Don't store up treasures on earth, store up treasures in heaven. I forgot the exact words, but like, things on this earth will not last forever. The good things, but also the bad things. And in the end, all these things will pass. And here, Jesus also teaches that there is an end to everything. The thing that will last forever is the kingdom of heaven. And therefore, seek first the kingdom of God. All these things will be added on to you. Do not worry about tomorrow, for today has enough worries of its own. In the end, I think hope and hopelessness, these two things will always continue to be in tension, at least for me in my heart. But what keeps me going is that what I see in the state of everything is not the end.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because even like while reading the book of Matthew, the type of Jesus as leader he was, right? He was like Son of God, and he was also Son of Man, wasn't he? Right? And I think the kind of standard he led in, the standard he kept in leading this entire Israel was such as what you were saying, the servant king, wasn't it? Right? And so it kind of like also gives us a standard of, this is what ruling or leading with so much love and with so much righteousness looks like. So it kind of also helps us envision what we can expect out of leadership as well. So I think it's not a problem for us to expect that of our leadership, right? And I'm not only talking about our country's leadership, but then in our family we do have leaders, don't we? In our society, in our church, we do have leaders. And I think the person of Jesus is very motivating and challenging in that it asks us then, what does the life of Jesus have to do with us? Then it questions us. So I found that quite intriguing. Anyway, moving on to what you were saying earlier on, Jesus asking us to forgive. You said that the one thing that you really liked was the person of Jesus himself, in your discovery from the book of Matthew. And my question to you on that follow-up would be wow, you get amazed looking at who Jesus is. That much of information and that much of following Jesus so closely in the Bible must do something in our life as well, hey? As a reflection. How was it for you personally? You see your master Jesus as A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What did that do to you in your personal life as a disciple?
Wow. One thing is that I started questioning myself in a similar way of how Jesus questioned the people following him around. Just an example, when Jesus was asking Peter, do you love me? And being and telling him, Peter, you will deny me 3 times. And then I saw myself struggling with that too. Like, do I love Jesus? How many times have I denied his name already? Another thing is, again, the parable of the wise and foolish builder. Like, how many times am I the foolish builder who loves listening to messages, who loves reading about it, being amazed, but then continuing to live my life the exact same way? It's like, how many times have I done that? Oh God, that just became a mirror to me. I found myself so easily judging the characters we see in the Bible, but the more I studied Matthew, the more I saw myself there. Oh God, I'm not better than any of them. Lord, like, how are you loving me so much?
Okay, on a more relaxed side. So there are so many topics in the book of Matthew, right? What were some central themes or scriptures that stood out to you?
I think for me, the story that really spoke to me was Jesus walking on water, and then Peter, like the disciples were on a boat and it's a storm, and Peter then asked the Lord, like, Lord, if it's really you, can I come? Can you tell me to come? And Jesus said, come. And Peter really did step out of the boat. But then after a while, he saw the waves, he got scared, and then he started to sink. And I think before, what I got out of this was that, okay, Peter was of little faith, so he didn't have enough faith. That's why he sank. Or that, okay, he didn't think rationally enough. Like, he didn't know what he was asking to do. That's a big thing. He's just too much of a rush to step out there. Peter stepped out for the Lord. He asked, like, Lord, if it's really you, can I come? And I think that's just so much of our like life, with Christ as well, as like, are we willing to step out? And I just love how it includes Peter also then seeing the waves, getting scared, sinking, because that I've experienced that like very often in my life, is that initially, I step out for the Lord, but only after stepping out, I thought I could, right? I thought I could do all of these, but only when I step out do I encounter like the waves of my weakness, of my fears, of my hypocrisy even, and then I sink. So it's really in the experience of it that you encounter that. And I love also how Peter then goes on to cry out, well, Lord, save me. Like, he knows who's his Lord, like he knows where to go to, and as soon as he does that, Jesus reach out and grab him. And almost that's like an assurance as well, is that the first step wasn't wrong. Like, stepping out of the boat wasn't wrong. It's fine. And it's almost like it is, you're not required to be perfect in order to keep going, but through the process, you are being perfected. And I think that was one story that really spoke deeply to me in this season.
For me, it wasn't exactly a particular chapter or verse, but more a class of verse. Is Jesus' prayer life described? Like, one verse that I saw repeated throughout Matthew was the verse, and Jesus retreated to a lonely place to pray with the Father. That really struck out to me, because despite the busyness of Jesus, like with crowds of people following him, several disciples to disciple, the people he's healing, and in his public ministry, Jesus took the time to retreat, not just as an afterthought, but like actively retreating to a lonely place to pray for long hours. Towards the end, when he's walking on his way to carrying the cross, we also saw a glimpse of what his prayer life is with God, with his Father. Conversation happening. This, where we see some of Jesus' intimate thoughts. Father, if it is your will, yet not my will, but your will be done.
Our viewers will hear your answers, but because I know you guys personally, so it makes so much sense of what you guys are saying. Tell us what you do now, and your busy schedule now, but at the same time when you were in your university. And I think it is so beautiful for me to hear it, because the praying aspect of Jesus stands out to you even in your busyness, that you have taken out your time to be with your Heavenly Father. And what is this connection with Jesus' prayer life with Father and your prayer life with your Heavenly Father?
For me, I guess one reason why the verses of Jesus' prayer life stood out was because I kind of see myself resonating with that. Like, one time there was the one time when I was studying in university, and I was involved in different activities here and there at the church, and then MG, and then studying for my exams. And at one point it got so bad, or I don't know, so packed, that I just dropped everything and disappeared and ran away to the mountains for a few hours. I didn't tell anyone, and I should have, honestly. It left many people confused. But I just retreated. I took my Bible, I took another book, retreated to the mountain, up to the mountain, and just sat there for 3 hours, something like that. And these days, when I'm working, I also take my lunchtime and I go out for a walk and just look at the sky, look at the mountains, or go to the rooftop of my building and just disconnect from everything and just soak in my surroundings and pray with the Lord.
And you just finished your university, and would you like to tell us what your title is in your job? What do you do?
Right now, I'm a junior software developer working at a local startup based in Science Park.
I'm proud of you, of what you do and who you are as well in the Lord. But this is just my interpretation, okay? You choosing that Peter walking on that water, and then after that, save me, Lord, recognizing who the Lord is and the Lord picking him up, right? Tell us about your life, because when I look at you, probably you've also done multiple of those stepping out, right? Even when you were not perfect, but in that process of perfection and trusting in God and looking at your Lord. Would you like to share us your life journey?
So right now I work at a local ministry called Basketball Sports Ministry. Don't be fooled by the name. We do a lot more than basketball. So we do a lot of training and discipleship, and we work with churches and schools. And I think just the nature of this job is completely me stepping out of the boat. I am very much an introvert. I am very much afraid of talking to people and just speaking, and all of this is like my weakness. But it's very interesting how then the Lord led me to such a ministry where on a daily basis, I lead programs. I face a lot of people. I need to learn how to communicate, how to, express myself. And I would think that these 2 years, it was a constantly stepping out of the boat and then encountering different waves of, just even things going on in my own heart, like. And I see people's expectation on me. Like what do I do? Like me wanting to please people, me wanting people to think well of me, me feeling very or the lies that I believe about myself, that I'm stupid or I can't talk, or just all of this, external, internal, just all the battles going on. And it only came after deciding to say yes to this job. And so I think these 2 years was just like working through a lot of that. I mean, I think I still have a long way to go, but then now I think I've also come so far these 2 years. I think just one simple way to conclude it would be, it's only when you reach the point that you really are sinking, there's nothing to hold on to. And then you cry out to God, like, God save me. And then he actually does. I think what Jesus says to his disciples, like, come and follow me. Come and see for yourself. I think this really speaks to my heart, is that, I could only ever share what I've experienced myself, or else it's just going to be words. The gospel story, it's something to be lived and interact with. It's not just like, it's a teaching, but it's not just a teaching. It's to be seen and experienced, and taking things really into action, into my daily life. I think that's what it means for me.
It is a journey of, one, understanding what Jesus is actually saying, and two, applying it into my own life. Like, for example, I was reading the Sermon on the Mount again, chapter 6, and then Jesus went into detail about the different laws and what they actually mean and what the principle behind each law is from the Old Testament. And that kind of gave me a framework to come to a deeper understanding of what Jesus is saying. Like when he says, to repeat an example, when he says forgives not 7 times but 77 times,
70 times 7.
like what does it mean? And the second is to actually do it. If he asks us to forgive, then I should take that and do the same in my life too.
But when it's about actions and things to do, he can be very direct, like, come follow me. It's like a very straightforward statement and an invitation. The next follow-up question for this would be, how do you feel like the whole book or the part of it, how does it inspire you to make a follower of Jesus?
For us as MG leaders as well, it's just the times that we meet on Friday for like Bible study or like on Sunday. But doing life together, like going out, just walking, eating, things. If you like have the life of Jesus and his words in your heart, like it comes through everything that you do. And I think that it's a lot of that through a lot of doing life together, that we just get to experience what is being taught rather than just talking about it. We experience it together as a community.
I really agree with what Sam said about, to add on to that, I just think about the golden rule. Love the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. Learning and studying the Bible is kind of a way of loving ourselves, because this is how we nourish our souls, our bodies. The challenge now is how to receive the blessing and bless others as we have been blessed by these teachings. One way we've been doing that is, the Bible studies. Another is through doing life together, while also guiding each interaction inspired by what we have received from God. That's how I would answer that.
Sure, thank you for your very honest and very practical answers as well. I'm glad that in terms of fellowship, we're doing everything. It's not just deep philosophical Bible studies and after that we'll disperse, but it's more like chatting about life and prayers and with sharing of thoughts and board games and food, and everything is always together.
There are many, but just one out of the many is in Matthew 23, when Jesus was talking to the religious leaders, and he was rebuking them, and he was one thing he was saying was like, is it more important the gifts on the altar or the altar that makes the gift valuable or holy? That speaks to me a lot of the time that it's very easy to fall into the trap of valuing the gift that God gave me and using that, and then also taking pride from that. And especially I think when doing ministry as well, that would be a huge temptation. And I really think that it's each morning, then waking up and opening my Bible, and I'm very blessed to be living where I can see a mountain from my window. And I think the verse that always pops into my head is where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and the mountain, on top of the mountain. And so that is a declaration each morning, that really helps to center then, okay, the altar, God who makes the gift holy, not the gift who defines who God is.
Well, there are also many things that challenge me. When Jesus was saying, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up the cross, and follow me. Throughout Matthew, I've seen examples of how Jesus' disciples have denied themselves, how Peter and Andrew denied themselves, their career as fishermen, and their families, of how people took up their cross, with John getting beheaded, terrible tragic death, and people who followed Jesus to the very end, only to be scattered when Jesus was arrested. Just challenging to read how the lives of the disciples unfolded in light of what Jesus said. deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me.
Friends, we would invite you to also read the book of Matthew to discover who Jesus is, what it means to be his disciple, and what it means to make his disciples. And I'm sure you will meet the Jesus in person. Thank you. Did I ever say thank you to you guys? Yeah. No, I don't think I said thank you to you. Did I?